The Golden State Warriors have had a type for a long time. It is sharpshooters. However, this year it seems like they're going to be spreading the wealth in terms of shooting. Top heavy, yes, but some of the players that we would not think of as shooters are expected to be just that. On today's Locked On Dubs.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everyone? Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen of every day. Lots of ways you can tune into the show. YouTube. We live stream after the games, and we're here every day, Monday through Friday, regardless of whether there's a game or not. While you're here, like it and subscribe so content is flowing your way nonstop. Also, take us on the go. Subscribe wherever you get your audio podcasts. We're always free, and we are always available. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Charlie Walter, formerly of 95.7 The Game in San Francisco. That's the flagship of the Golden State Warriors. Covered the team on their championship run in 21-22. Also covered that team for CBS News Bay Area. One of my colleagues at 95.7 The Game, and now just a regular on the show is Matt Kolsky. Man, the Dubs are doing some yoga in Hawaii, I saw today. The band is back together, not in full uniforms out in Hawaii like they were during picture day and during their media day. But this thing's real, buddy. How we doing?
Oh, thank goodness we're finally here. Looks beautiful. I wish I was in Hawaii.
Don't we all? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter where you are. You can probably agree with that sentiment. You're probably like, I wish I was in Hawaii.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm sure there's a few people in like Fiji who are doing fine, but we all wish we were in Hawaii.
No doubt. On today's show, we're talking about the Warriors having a type that is shooters. However, this year, it sounds like some of their shooting, maybe a small plethora of players.
Small plethora. Interesting.
Is there such a thing as a small?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure the definition of plethora is in abundance. So yeah, I don't know if that could be possible. But basically, some of these Warriors that they've brought in, it sounds like they've been brought in to make shots. And I'm specifically saying Kyle Anderson. That's a tease to Kyle Anderson, the sharpshooter. Also, Brandin Podziemski on what this Warriors team has this season. And we just hear from Podziemski overall. But let's start about the Warriors having a type, man, because when they really burst onto the scene, and even before, 15-16, but 15-16, that was the year they shot 41%. And since Clay and Steph teamed up, it changed the way that teams play basketball. We've now seen, 7-8 straight years where the top four shooting teams in the league, 3-point wise, are usually relevant by season's end. A lot of times the NBA champion is a top four shooting team. The Warriors are one of the top teams in the league again last year, in the top 10. This year, looking to get back to that top spot. Clearly an important part of what they can do this season. Here's Brandin Podziemski on what this team has.
What do you feel like you've learned in those scrimmages, maybe about some of the new, free agent additions or maybe one of your returning guys?
We can shoot. Yeah, we can shoot. And
who in particular is kind of...
I think you guys would be surprised by Kyle Anderson. Jump shot looks a little different. Looks pretty good. Obviously, Buddy shoots a lot of threes. D'Anthony can shoot a lot of threes. Lindy Waters shoot a lot of threes. So I think from that standpoint, we're filled out with guys that can shoot.
I'm fascinated to get your takes on this because I actually did an entire thesis paper or read a thesis paper that talks about how the three-point shot has lost value. But overall, when you hear Podziemski say that, this team can really shoot and then right out of the gate mentions Kyle Anderson, who shot it, mind you, 22% from downtown last season, how do you react?
Well, first, I have a lot of questions about that thesis because I'm pretty sure the value of a three-pointer is fixed and it is also in the name. That said.
Fair.
That said, before I heard that Podziemski bite, I was already on this train a little. Not necessarily to say I think Kyle Anderson's going to shoot the lights out, but he has had good shooting seasons in the past. In fact, his best season by far, he was like a 36% shooter from three, I think, and averaged double digits. And it was also the only season where he shot more than two. He shot like 3.5 a game. Last year was bad, but the year before, I believe he was like 41%.
41% on little attempts. Yeah.
Yeah, that's on 1.5 a game. So what I was going to say is not necessarily he'll shoot the lights out, but that at least to start the season, he's going to get those shots and he should take them. I imagine even without Clay as a Golden State Warrior, Kyle Anderson should be getting the best looks he's gotten ever. And to me, that's because you're not wrong that the Warriors sharpshooters have been a thing here, obviously. But in a way, Steve Kerr's type is less about shooting and more about basketball IQ. And I'm glad that Brandin Podziemski is telling us Kyle Anderson and DeAnthony Melton are shooting really well in a gym with no defense. But I think the key thing about those guys and the reason that they will fit here and the reason that they may shoot better than they have historically here is because they really fit what the Warriors want to do from a ball movement and intelligence standpoint. And they can both play some D. So I think that 3-point question is going to be kind of the deciding factor of the season. Like
and it's with Looney too.
That's right.
Looney too.
And not just them. It's with everybody besides Steph Curry. Draymond was a 39% shooter from three last season. If he can do that for a full healthy season, that changes a lot. That's for the Golden State Warriors.
When you look at the 15-16 team, man, and obviously there's no Kevin Durant. He's not walking through that door. You don't have Hall of Fame Klay Thompson. But what that team had was just players that could shoot at every position. You look at what the Warriors tried to do this offseason and, at least flirting with Lauri Markkanen and then bringing in Quentin Post, a sharpshooting big. It seems like at every position, if, they're bringing in Anderson to knock down some shots and telling Looney behind the scenes, like, hey, here's what we want you to do in the offseason, lose a little weight, get back into shape, knock down some threes, in addition to what you can do defensively. It does seem like the Warriors are just trying to, have every position on their team be able to keep you honest.
We've talked about it with Podziemski. We've talked about it with Kuminga.
Wiggins. They're talking Wiggins shooting 6 threes this year.
And that's because they understand who they are. This team will be defined by ball. It's like what Steve Kerr said, right? This was part of what I think we actually played it on the show. If not, it was certainly part of his press conference. Steve Kerr said something to the effect of our values as a team, as a franchise, our basketball values don't change, but the system changes. And they went from being sort of the leader in 3-point shooting quantity to, as you said, changing the game the way it was played for basically everybody, to being middle of the road 3-point quantity. And I think they're looking at the rest of Steph Curry's career and thinking this needs to be a 3-point shooting team first. And if we can't spread the floor, we're not going to be able to do what we want to do. So everyone's going to be asked to do that. How well it pans out remains to be seen.
All right. So the question is coming up. Steph Curry talks about the Warriors needing to evolve. Steve Kerr talks about maybe simplifying things. Yet Brandin Podziemski says, keep on chucking them. And everyone on the team's working on, whether it's lefty or righty, working on chucking them up this season, it sounds like. So what does evolving entail? Plus, we hear from Kyle Anderson about what he brings to the Golden State Warriors this season. Most people think they know exactly what he brings, but he does give us some nice buzzwords that we have not heard yet. We hear from Anderson in just a minute. Locked On Warriors. Chart. All right. Today's episode's brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you could start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's when you place your first $5 bet on FanDuel.com. 2025 NBA title odds. What do you think the Golden State Warriors are, Kolsky? Give me a number.
30-1.
30-1. That would be 3,000. They are plus 4,500. So
wow.
One. Yes, Golden State Warriors.
Okay.
They are in 14th right now behind the Lakers at plus 4,000. The Celtics, the leader in the clubhouse, plus 320. The Thunder at plus 700. And the New York Knicks have climbed all the way up to plus 750. If you're going to place a wager on any of those teams, visit FanDuel.com. So with the Golden State Warriors talking a lot about shooting this offseason, especially from some of the newcomers, you mentioned, or I guess Brandin Podziemski mentioned it, with Kyle Anderson now being able to knock down shots with nobody on him. Buddy Hield being quite the sharpshooter. We know that. And this is the same Buddy Hield that when he played for the Kings, there were seasons where he was putting up 9-10 threes a game. Like what Steve Kerr wants from Podziemski and shooting 8 to 10, Buddy Hield has done that in the past. So let's not forget he's a microwave. Looney says he wants to shoot at least one every game, potentially two. I would imagine that Anderson's probably only going to take him when he's in the corner, when he's wide open, but he wants to keep you honest. If Kuminga can start knocking him down to the 35, 37% clip, he's very dangerous. Moody has shown capabilities of being a sharpshooter. It seems like at every position, the Warriors are able to shoot. They're also very undersized. It's kind of been an MO for a while now. Yet Steph Curry says entering this year, he's got an open mind about how they're going to play, about the style and the brand that is going to define this team. Doesn't sound like much is changing to me. Like, what do you think he's getting at when you kind of, go past the tea leaves and pull back the weeds?
That's a fair question. I'm not sure Steve Kerr said similar things. So it's obviously,
It's just again, like it's going to look different because, instead of Clay out there, it's a combo of Buddy and Pods. Like, what are we talking about here?
I do think even when he wasn't the old Clay, he still drew attention in a way befitting his reputation a lot of the time. On the other hand, I think certainly Melton and probably Anderson at this stage are more valuable defensively than Clay has been. It's been a pretty rough ride for him on that end of the floor since the injuries. So it's just different. And I'm sure even though Clay has missed a lot of time, there's a difference between somebody not being here now and somebody being gone, So I imagine it feels different to them in that way. And I imagine as they integrate guys like Hield and Melton and Anderson, and as the young guys start to do more, maybe it'll complexify again. But I think simplification is probably best when you're melding a lot of new parts together in new ways. Because Wiggins or Kuminga or both really are taking on very different roles in the absence of Clay, one would imagine. I don't know. I'm torn on this because part of me says, well, aren't those the roles they were taking on when this team won the title? Or at least Wiggins was, right? Isn't that the role Kuminga was taking on last year? So it may just be that all those things have never functioned together at the same time over a consistent period. So they're saying, let's keep it simple to get us all on the same page, and then we'll figure out where to go from there.
I mean, with the Warriors, the ball movement aspect of it, the running around frantically, the Steph Curry moving off screens, that's not
Running
changing.
around frantically. Yes. Yeah.
The overhead pass, right? That's not changing anytime
Hopefully
soon.
less of the really ridiculous ones, but yeah.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it's led to a lot of turnovers, but it's also,
a lot of beauty.
Sparked many Curry flurries. It's been kind of, it's led to the crescendo. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But with the Warriors right now, 12 players fighting for spots per Steve Kerr. Pretty much every spot in the starting lineup is open. So whatever we heard in the offseason about Brandin Podziemski being penciled in or sharpied in or whatever it was as the starting shooting guard, that's probably not the case. It's Steph and then everyone else fighting. How?
Is that what he said? Is that what he said exactly? I think this is a listen carefully to Steve Kerr's words situation, Chuck.
Give it to me. What am I missing?
Well, I don't know if you're missing much. I just think what he actually said was, well, I think I'm going to start the Curry guy. Like, he was being tongue in cheek, right? I think I'm going to start the Curry guy, and there might be other people who I probably are thinking. I'm
not going to tell you. You're right. He's like, why would I tell you?
Like, let's not kid ourselves. Draymond Green is not coming off of the bench for the Golden State Warriors. That's not a thing that's going to happen to start the season. If you're telling me Andrew Wiggins needs to shoot 6 threes a game and you're counting on him for 20 points a game, he's not coming off the bench. I think the surprise would be Pods, but I'm starting to think that rather than surprise, it's going to be disappointment that I feel, and it's going to be Kuminga who's not in the starting lineup, and I just don't know how they're going to – I don't know. We'll see. I shouldn't start saying things like this. Maybe there's a way to start all those guys.
What,
can Andrew Wiggins play the 2?
Kuminga at the 4, Draymond at the 5. What are we thinking there?
Well, I mean, it's either big or small, right? It's either Wiggins at the 2.
So you're talking or Curry, Melton,
5.
Curry, Wiggins, Melton.
Melton? No, I'm talking about Kuminga. I'm saying if we think Wiggins is starting, we know Draymond's starting, we know Steph is starting. You've basically just boxed Jonathan Kuminga out, unless either Wiggins plays shooting guard or Draymond plays center. And I just don't know if that. Look, a lot of the time, Draymond's going to end up playing center. I don't know that.
And that's so is Anderson. We've heard that in the last couple of days. Draymond told him you're a center now.
Yeah, I think that's right. Although if Draymond and Anderson are on the floor together, who's to say who the center is, right? I mean,
that's going to be tough, though. I mean, if you put Draymond and Anderson on the floor, that's the lineup where you got to have Wiggins, Curry, and Podziemski, right? And just have 3 shooters. Because I would still consider Wiggins someone that can, definitely keep you honest and shoot, especially from the mid range. So you'd have to have a lineup like that, right?
Are we already giving up on? We're already giving up on the Kyle Anderson shooting renaissance, I guess.
I never even questioned it, to be honest.
I mean, that's the question, right?
I mean, can he keep you honest? Yes. But, I mean, still, him and Draymond on the floor at the same time, it's going to be stagnant. It just is.
Actually, if you have a 37% from 3 Anderson and 39% from 3 Draymond, it's not going to be stagnant at all because they're both brilliant ball movers. They're both more than happy to pass. They know their roles. They're only going to be shooting open threes in the normal flow of offense, right? You're not running plays for either of those guys. I actually think if they shoot it, they'll be great on the floor together. And certainly if Draymond is saying to Kyle Anderson, you're a center now, he means you're playing center next to me. Now, look, Draymond's never going to think of himself as a non-shooter, strangely enough. But I guess that's where it is with all this stuff. That's why I think 3-point shooting will determine so much of what happens this season from Draymond and Kyle Anderson. Again, everybody but Steph Curry is I don't know when it comes to will they shoot the 3 ball well this year. And the more yeses there are, the better.
Couple of the things that I wanted to talk about real quick. I'm not going to play the soundbite, but Podziemski was talking about why shooting is so important to his game right now. and why Dunleavy and Steve Kerr came up to him in the offseason and told him, we want you shooting 8-10 threes per game. And it was just watching the tape from himself and some of the open looks he turned down over the years, last year rather. And not just that, but looking at the tape and seeing the shots that Clay and Steph was able to get off. And he basically was like, why not me? Why can't I get those shots off? And then said, if he can hit them at a big clip, defenders are going to, collapse the 3-point line. And at that point, he could really turn into a playmaker, to a facilitator, which is where he thrives. So that's going to be a huge portion of this season, is shot selection for Brandin Podziemski. Can he be someone that knocks it down at a 40% clip? Let's not forget, he was above 40% in Santa Clara. He was 38 in his debut year for Golden State. Who's not to say that this guy can be a 40% three-point shooter consistently? Can he do it on volume? And can he create the shots that Steph and Clay were able to create? Steph, obviously, with his incredible quickness and just his asinine ability to get open at all times, and his stamina, which is just better than anyone's in the world, literally. Yeah. And then Klay Thompson, obviously, his ability to get off a shot, because he's what, 6'7"?
About that. I also think Clay became better and better at using the threat of his shot to get to other places on the floor as well, as his career went on, which I think is something Podziemski's already pretty good at. Look, I have really high hopes for all the young guys on this team in the short and the long term. It's just we don't know until it happens. And it's the same thing with hearing about Kyle Anderson's three-point shot. That's all well and good. Mm-hmm. And listen, even if he on Saturday in preseason game number 1, even if Kyle Anderson goes 5 for 5 from 3, we're not really going to know until they're really playing. And even then, we're not really going to know till probably like New Year's. Talk to me at New Year's about the three-point percentages of Podziemski, Anderson, Kuminga, and Looney. And then I'll know how we're doing.
Yeah, after a lifetime in local news, what you do is you go to these press conferences, you talk to these players, especially at the high school level. They always have aspirations of state champions. Oh, Bo had a tough sophomore year. Let me tell you what, he put in the work this offseason. It's been nothing but muscle milk and reps on the Bowflex. Best shape of his life. And then they come out there and go 0-12. So you're right, man. Still hypothetical season in that sense. It's going to be exciting to see him out there. Going to be excited to see Kyle Anderson out there. What does he bring to the team aside from his shooting capabilities? We'll discuss it next on Locked On Warriors, and we will hear from Kyle. Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Let me tell you a little bit about Gametime. Live events, whether they're sporting, whether it's a comedy show, whether it's theater, whatever it may be, Gametime is going to take care of you. One of the great things about it, for all the procrastinators out there that don't have tickets when you're on your way to the game, you're planning on going to the box office, whatever it may be. No, just download the Gametime app in the Uber. Then, obviously, you can use code LOCKEDONNBA. You can also get cheaper tickets the closer it gets to your event starting. You also get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Make sure the seats are as good as they sound based on the section. The lowest price guarantee or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Again, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Kyle Anderson coming over from the Memphis Grizzlies a couple seasons ago, played the last 2 seasons for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Not a sharpshooter by any means, but he did stroke it from 41% in 22-23. That was negated from his game big time last season, shooting just 22%. But what he is unselfish. He's someone that could play with a bunch of hell. Why do I need to tell you what he is? Here's what Kyle Anderson brings to the table per Kyle Anderson.
Bringing to the table what I've done my whole career, being an unselfish player, being able to, I think one of my best traits is being able to play with a lot of other good players. So I'm going to be out there on the floor with a lot of guys who can score the ball. I'm going to facilitate, get them the ball, and then, focus on playing hard, defending, rebounding, things like that. Just that's some of the things from the outside looking in. You see the Warriors do at a really high level, and I think I can help out with that.
They talk about this guy as a Swiss Army knife everywhere he's been. We've heard comparisons, more so when he was younger than in the NBA. But we heard the name Magic Johnson, someone that, grew up as a point guard, essentially, had a growth spurt and has freakish ability to command a game with the ball in his hands for his size, or at least a very good ability. Freakish may be a stretch. But Kyle Anderson, man, what does he bring to the table to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think rather than invoke the name of one of the top 10 players of all time, I would go with like a poor man's Lamar Odom. He's really a smart basketball player. And also, I should say, poor man's offensive Lamar Odom. He's a good defender. He defends well. He can defend multiple positions. Given that his name is Slow-Mo, moves his feet surprisingly well on that end of the floor. Like, the guy is a good, smart basketball player. And he's also 6'9", which is as tall as anybody on the team other than Quentin Post. So I think he's huge for what they want to do. Huge. And I think that point that he made, I'm great at playing with other good players, that's been historically very important for this franchise.
Podziemski had a soundbite where he was talking about Steph Curry and what he means as a mentor. And one of the things that stood out to me was Podziemski saying that Curry lifts up everyone that's around him, lifts them up to championships, lifts them up to being better players than they were when they got there. Leave them better when you found them. That kind of applies to everyone that plays with Steph Curry. Maybe not, Kelly Oubre.
I mean, even kind of Kelly Oubre.
Fair enough. Maybe
even
not James
kind of
Wiseman.
D'Angelo Russell. James Wiseman's probably the toughest, but I don't think we can blame that on Steph. It's true. And so many guys have gotten that Steph Curry glow up. Like, it's undeniable.
You think Buddy Hield can benefit from that Steph Curry glow up?
100%. 100%. Yeah, it doesn't all have to be defensive-minded guys or passing-minded guys. I think this is a great opportunity for Buddy Hield. I think this team knows better than anyone how to get a good three-point shooter, good looks next to Steph Curry, right? That shouldn't be a challenge. They know that game. I'm excited to watch Buddy Hield. I am. Again, there's just so much to like about the way the new guys fit. It's hard to get too bullish on this team because there's so much unknown, but there really is a lot to like about what they've put together.
No, 100%. I just look at when you're talking about Buddy having a role and playing, is it all going to be situational this season, dependent on who they're playing and maybe not having particular roles defined, especially game one? Like, here's the 10 we're running consistently. Gary Payton, you may get some DNPs. Like, how are they going to manage all these different players, the youth with the mid-level players? It always screamed to me there's going to be a trade that happens at some point in the season just to kind of clean things up. But maybe there's a way that they can make it work with all these shooting guards and small forwards on the roster and small forwards and Kyle Anderson playing center, that sort of thing.
In a perfect world, I think it's essentially, look, if you're good enough, a huge part of your ability to play 12 guys is playing your stars less. So in a perfect world, the reason you can get to 12 is because Steph Curry's playing 30 minutes a night. Now, I don't know if that's realistic for where they want to be. But if they're really rolling from the start of the year and they find the right combinations, and I think that's why we are hearing already very early this buzzword about lineup combinations. We got to find the combinations. Like, almost every combination they play this year will be a new combination. Right? I mean, there's a couple from last year that we'll see frequently. Maybe there's like a Curry, Podziemski, Kuminga, Draymond Looney, right? Like we've seen that one. But for the most part, like Kuminga didn't get it. Podziemski was a rookie last year. Kuminga didn't get a ton of minutes before last year, and Wiggins was barely there over the course of the last 2 years. Draymond has missed so much time. Like, plus you've got the new guys. It's going to be a new five on the floor most of the time for the first few weeks of the season. And, you know, finding the right groups of five is going to be a fascinating thing to watch.
I've changed my stance, Kolsky. In the last 30 minutes, I went from not believing in Kyle Anderson as a three-point shooter to hell. I'm going to believe it for whatever reason.
Why not him?
He said this offseason he's been doing around the world. He started like 2 feet away from the rim, just working on his mechanics. In years past, he hasn't had the ability to do this type of shooting training the entire offseason because of injuries and just not being physically ready to go in the offseason. This year, fully healthy and had the chance to, you know, then step out to 15 feet, then take it to 20. And at least with no one on him, he's really knocking them down. So if he can, you know, get off to a start where you're right, he shoots 2 per game, he knocks down one of them, you at least got to put a hand out there in his face. It stretches the floor. And if everyone can do that in the lineup at the same time, Draymond included, scary.
Crazier things have happened. Again, Draymond was a 39% shooter last year from 3.
Yeah, but 15 seconds left in the game, you're down 2, NBA Finals. You telling Draymond to take that 3, or is he gonna swing it real quick? And
I'm not.
The numbers say take it. It's 39%.
I would generally prefer he doesn't take it in the third quarter, but that's not the point. The point is,
I know what you're saying.
You know, if that stuff's working in the first month, then those guys are either going to draw defense or they're going to be hitting shots. And either way, it works for the Warriors.
Yeah, no doubt. Matt Kolsky, Charlie Walter, Locked On Warriors. Monday through Friday, we're with you. First preseason game for the Dubs, October 5th against the LA Clippers. Free and available wherever you get your audio podcast. Peace, everyone. Have a good night, day, wherever, whenever you're listening.